This week on the Steele Report, a quick legislative update from the Speaker of the Iowa House, Pat Grassley, a new update on COVID-19 here locally, and an Easter Sunday perspective from Pastor Q, Quo-Vadis Marshal of Hope City Church. And our program begins right now.
Now from KWWL, this is the Steele Report.
And welcome to the Steele Report for this week. We're going to begin the program with the Iowa Speaker of the House, State Representative Pat Grassley. What kind of reaction have you received for maybe supporters and opponents of that gun legislation that's going to the governor?
Yeah, so the bill that was sent to the governor, well, first, thanks for having me on, Ron. Glad to be here with you again. We've actually had an outpouring of support for the bill that we passed. It's been discussed for several years in the legislature. I would say the people that have been concerned about the bill have used a lot of the same arguments and somewhat, I would say, rhetoric that we've heard on any gun bill that we've passed through the legislature in my time here. We feel confident the bill that we've passed not only provides further freedoms for those that want to exercise their Second Amendment, but also at the same time will require more background checks. I know that was a big talking point that was being used, eliminating background checks. This bill does not eliminate background checks. In fact, I would say that it requires more. If you do not choose to not have the permit, every time you want to purchase a firearm, you'll have to fill out that background check. So I actually think that this will lead to more, but it will also give the option, if you would choose not to have the 5-year permit.
Yeah, we were talking with Blackhawk County Sheriff Tony Thompson about that recently. Essentially, the bill makes having a permit to carry kind of an option for Iowans, but it does strengthen, in your opinion, the background check process.
Yeah, because right now, the current form that you have to have right now is a 5-year one-time background check. So if I do a background check for the next 5 years for me to go in to purchase that firearm, that's good for 5 straight years. Today, if you choose not to have that permit to acquire, you'll be able to go in, and every time you go in, you can purchase a firearm without it. However, you're going to fill out that background check. So from that standpoint, I actually think that it will encourage more people. If you are someone that wants to be a collector, that wants to be able to purchase more firearms, more than likely you'll keep the permit, so you don't have to fill that out every single time. But anyone that walks in off the street that wants to go to a licensed dealer is still going to have to fill out the required paperwork.
There's nothing more frustrating than driving in a rural county in Iowa and all of a sudden you have absolutely no internet service.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to try to provide world-class speeds, but also be able to make sure that we're hitting every Iowan that needs it. We don't want to be in a position where the only people that are getting the service are the easy ones to make sure they get the fiber to their homes. We want to make sure that we can get fiber to people's homes, but we also want to provide high-speed internet through other means. So our bill kind of meshes those two services together to try to cover as many Iowans as possible, as quickly as possible.
So in the school systems, the charter school bill has already passed your House pretty easily.
The big cry that we had heard of this whole time since the beginning of session is no public money for private schools. These charter schools that we've set up in the bill we passed last week, they're public charter schools that we're making sure that there is the option for parents to be able, if there's a group of parents that want to get together and start one, it's not as simple as just 2 or 3 parents getting together and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you have a charter school district. This is going to be a process that takes time, but it also is going to be for those parents and students who maybe aren't being best served by the current options available. And so we tried to address parental choice in education while keeping those dollars in the public sector. We knew that was a big outpouring from Iowans. They wanted to see that. And I think this bill meshes those two things together.
I want to mention a bill that really kind of quietly moved through your House, but overwhelmingly got approval, and that bill really could have an impact on the Cedar Falls Public Safety Program.
My district is the western border of Cedar Falls. I can tell you, I was hearing from a lot of our small town fire departments that they wanted to make sure that there was that proper level of training. There were a lot of collaborative efforts that happen when the emergency bell rings, that they're working together in a lot of cases, and they wanted to make sure that that level of training that they felt comfortable with. And so from that standpoint, that was a lot of the emphasis on the bill. It was bipartisan support. That bill obviously passed over to the Senate, but I think it's something that, we want, those of us that are kind of in the area, but then all the legislators recognize the importance of making sure that we are able to have those collaborations between the city of Cedar Falls as well as all of our small surrounding areas. But as far as where that bill sits, that's currently in the Senate. I don't know what the fate of it would be necessarily over there. I have not been engaged in those conversations. But again, we passed that bill with strong bipartisan support.
Now, there's some tax revamp, property tax revamp on the table, it appears. Right now, a Senate subcommittee, I think they've started to work already, would gradually kind of shift the cost of mental health services from the counties to the state.
We already have a lot of programs at the state level in which, I use Medicaid, for example. 1 in 4 Iowans are on Medicaid. Well over $1 billion a year we spend on that program, which we have very little input since it's a federal program. You look at TIF, for example, we spend over $70 million a year backfilling school districts for communities across the state to use TIF. We have no seat at the table and say how those dollars are used. So I look at this as, you know, we have a current system that's ran regionally, and then obviously through the counties is where the buck stops. And we're going to be in a position where if we were to make this full transition without looking how the dollars are spent on the back end, we could just be setting ourselves up for another situation, which the state has taken on right now, which is $115 million, and is projected to grow over the next several years. We're just taking over cost that we have no way how to control how the money's spent on the backside. So I think that it's something we need to be having the discussion. I just think the discussion is much bigger than the state just writing a check every year. I think it's a much bigger conversation.
Yeah, what's the biggest piece of legislation, do you think, the most important piece that will come out of this legislative session?
Well, I can tell you one of the most important pieces we heard about coming into session that we addressed immediately was requiring 100% in-person learning as an option for all parents. I think that was one of the biggest things that we heard. I mean, there were literally legislative seats that changed hands because local school boards in some areas of the state, the voters didn't feel like they were being listened to. So I can tell you that was one of the biggest issues coming into session. But like I said, broadband's a huge issue that I hope we can make some progress on, and I'd love to see some of the bills we've sent across the rotunda when it comes to childcare make it to the governor.
And real quickly, I know we got to go here because you're busy, but the American Rescue Plan is going to send billions of dollars here to the state of Iowa. From your viewpoint, how should that money be spent most effectively?
Well, it looks like, and we're still getting all of the details. You know, there's a lot of rules still being written. It's Washington, D.C. It's going to take a lot of time. What I can say is, you know, as that money comes, what I think is happening, there's a lot more strings attached to these dollars than maybe there have been in any of the other packages that have come to the state. So obviously, we want to wait and see how that kind of all boils out and shakes out from the federal government before I'd really want to make a comment on how it should be used, because I may have a lot of opinions on how I would want it to be used. But it doesn't look like we're going to be in a position this legislative session to even know what all those rules look like.
Right. All right. That's State Representative, Speaker of the House, Pat Grassley. Thanks very much, Pat, for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
We're going to continue the Struble Report here in just a moment. Well, right now,